Through a series of critical race theory lectures in July of 2021 without touching on the subject of residential schools. So I'm going to do that. I maybe spend 25 minutes of this, I think. The mistake that's being made is that they're confusing the concept of personal forgiveness with the concept of collective forgiveness. If you want forgiveness for something, you have to admit what you did, you have to do it publicly, you have to promise not to do it again, and you can't make excuses. If one person commits evil against another person and won't do that, in a sense, they don't deserve real forgiveness. And probably 99.9% of the evils ever committed don't fit that category. So forgiveness is a lofty goal, let's say. Okay, but the problem, if you're looking at it from the point of view of, I guess, a conservative, is that there's a very big difference between personal and collective guilt. In a sense, we don't believe in collective guilt, because no Canadian today, that I know of, anyway, under the age of 100 probably, had anything to do with the residential schools. They didn't know that it happened, and they're not responsible. They're not personally responsible. And you actually hear people say, "Are a white person today, is he actually responsible?" And there's kind of hum and hawing about that. A person who asks that should probably check himself into an insane asylum. It makes zero sense. Does the state owe money? Does the church owe money? Of course there's that sort of legal thing, but if you insist that a person is guilty because of their race, you are a fucking monster. I don't believe that Aboriginal people are monsters. I think that critical race theorists are monsters. They're re-traumatizing people. It's right on the front. This is re-traumatizing people. Yeah, that's what you're doing, okay? You're doing it for fun and profit, mostly profit. You're doing it for a sense of superiority. You're doing it because white people are really addicted to being shamed. And there's no critical thought whatsoever. If critical thinking is approaching a situation looking for context, perspective, and asking questions, in a sense, that you could explain it that way. And being honest and patient and respectful and humble and all of that sort of thing. Being clear and accurate about facts. You cannot say that you've applied critical thinking to the situation of residential schools because no questions have been asked. Hardly. Number one, were white children also abused in Catholic schools? Because the argument is that the Catholic schools and the Canadian government were specifically racist. So you tell me, how many Canadians were abused white Canadians were abused in Catholic boarding schools or orphanages? It's how they were referred to at that time. I'm talking about the 40s and 50s. How many kids? You don't know because nobody talks about it. You don't know because you didn't look into it. You didn't look into it because you don't know anything about critical thinking. If you did, you'd ask that question. So I'm going to give you the spelling here. What is it? Dupuis. Oh my God, I don't have it written down. Okay, Dupres, D-U-P-R-I-E-S. I think, yeah, they locked up 20,000 white kids because they could get more money by saying that they're mentally ill and had to be taken care of. It's a monstrous thing. 20,000 in the 40s and 50s. In the 40s and 50s, I would guess, and this is probably historically accurate, more white kids were being tortured in Catholic schools than Aboriginal kids. Okay? Just look it up. Nobody's bothering to ask what circumstances were like in the 1890s. They know this. Canadians are too polite to ask a rude question. So this would be considered a rude question. What did they die of? Tuberculosis, quite often. What was the age? Okay, here's a good one. What was the age of... what was the infant mortality rate for 5-year-olds in Canada in like 1900? It was 20%. 20% of Canadians didn't make it to the age of 5. Okay, I'm going to do a bunch of these.